I was 2 hours into Christmas dinner at my Aunt Linda's when my dad casually announced, "Oh, Jake's moving out of the old place soon, finally selling the lake house." Forks paused midair. Conversations died like a skipped record. I blinked. The what? The room froze, full of relatives pretending they hadn't just heard my dad declare I was the owner of property I didn't know existed. I laughed, thinking maybe I'd misheard. Wait, what lake house? My dad's eyes went wide for a half-second. Then came the worst bluff I've ever seen. You know, the family place on Mirror Lake. The one Grandma used to own? I asked slowly, already feeling my stomach drop. Mom shot Dad a death glare across the table. Yeah, that one, he said too fast. She transferred it to you when you graduated college, remember? The room went quiet like everyone else did remember, and had assumed I knew. No, I said, my voice dry. I absolutely do not remember inheriting a lakefront property. Because that has never happened. My cousin Nathan leaned forward, eyes wide. Wait, you didn't know you owned that place? You've been paying property taxes on it for years, right? My blood ran cold. I live in a one-bedroom apartment above a vape shop. I've been saving for a used car. I don't even own a damn coffee table. Mom shoved her chair back. Can we not do this here? It's Christmas, for God's sake. No, I said, standing. No, I think we absolutely should do this here. Dad rubbed his face, muttering something about miscommunication. My aunt looked like she was about to have a heart attack. My younger sister Emma, eyes wide and blinking like she was watching a reality TV show unfold, whispered, "Holy crap. Grandma had died 6 years ago. I was 26, broke, and drowning in student loans. My parents had told me the estate was simple, just some old jewelry and a small savings account that had mostly gone to final expenses. I'd believe them. Why wouldn't I? We weren't close, but they were still my parents. You said Grandma didn't leave anything big," I said quietly. "You said her estate was wrapped up." Mom avoided my eyes. Dad sighed. "We didn't think you were ready." Ready? For what? Owning a house I never knew existed. I grabbed my coat. I couldn't breathe. "Jake, don't make a scene," Mom said. "I'm not," I snapped. "You already made it. I'm just exiting stage left." Outside, the cold slapped me like a truth I should have seen years ago. The next morning, I was outside the county records office before they even unlocked the doors. I hadn't slept, just paced my apartment imagining worst-case scenarios and legal loopholes. There was no way my parents had just forgotten to mention that I owned a property worth, what, $500,000? More? An hour and a sympathetic clerk later, I had the deed in my hands. Owner, Jacob Allen Monroe. Property address, 1478 Mirror Lake Road. Date transferred, August 14th, 2017. 6 freaking years ago. I sat on the curb outside the building, staring at the paper like it might morph into something that made sense. Grandma had actually left me her lake house. Not Mom. Not Dad. Me. She'd raised her kids there every summer. She taught me how to fish on that dock. She used to say, "This place is yours, Jake. Someday you'll bring your own kids here." I thought it was just a sweet sentiment. Turns out, it was a legal will. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. So, Mom and Dad are panicking. Dad's looking for a lawyer. I called her immediately. They stole it, I said flatly. I kinda figured that out, she said. Dad was screaming at Mom last night after you left. I guess they've been renting it out through some luxury vacation site for years. Like 5-star reviews, high-end clients, the whole nine. I could barely process it. Are you serious? They didn't even stay there themselves. They'd been using the income to renovate the house they're in now. You know that screened-in porch they saved up for? Paid for by your lake house. I laughed, one of those manic, I'm on the edge laughs that feels like it might tip into sobbing. I'm going to burn them to the ground. Also, Emma added, they told everyone you knew. Said you were letting them manage it for the family. I felt my blood pressure spike so hard I saw spots. They built a lie that big? Oh, it gets better, she said. The reason Dad said anything last night? Because the renters for New Year's just cancelled and you were supposed to call the cleaning company. They put your name on everything. You're the legal owner and the management contact. I looked at the deed again, the sick feeling crawling higher in my chest. My parents hadn't just hidden the truth. They'd used it. Milked it. Lied for years while I'd struggled to make rent, eaten canned soup for dinner, skipped holidays because I couldn't afford the gas. And they were about to get a visitor. Me. I drove 3 hours straight to Mirror Lake without stopping. No music. Just the sound of my knuckles cracking on the steering wheel and my brain replaying every time my parents had told me. Money was tight. I pulled into the gravel driveway around 2 p.m., and for a moment I just sat there staring at the house. White siding, wraparound porch, red shutters just like I remembered. The damn wind chimes Grandma used to hang were still clinking on the back patio. It looked perfect. Not a single shingle out of place. Like someone had been taking obsessive care of it. Because someone had. The front door was open. I stepped onto the porch and heard voices inside. 2 women laughing, then the clink of glasses. I knocked once, twice. "Hello?" I called. The laughter stopped. A woman in her 30s appeared in the doorway, holding a mug. "Hi-oh! You must be Jake. Rob said you might drop by." "Rob? My father?" "Yeah," I said, my voice tight. "I'm Jake. The owner of this house." Her smile faltered. "Oh. I'd like you to leave." She blinked. "We booked it through Lakeview Luxury Rentals. It's supposed to be available through Sunday." "Not anymore," I said, pulling the deed from my coat pocket and holding it up. "The owner, me, was not aware of this booking or any others. You've been lied to." Behind her, another woman peeked into the hall. "What's going on?" "You're trespassing," I said, trying not to let the anger burn through my throat. "You need to pack up and leave. I'll call the sheriff if I have to." They didn't argue. They were decent people who'd been duped into thinking this was a legitimate vacation rental. As they packed, I walked through the house. Every room was pristine. Polished. Fully furnished with high-end furniture I certainly didn't buy. There was a binder on the kitchen counter labeled Guest Guide, with custom logos, spa recommendations, and a welcome note. From the Monroe family. The Monroe family. There was a photo in the living room, my parents and Tyler, my cousin, standing on the dock in matching linen shirts. The caption: "Summer 2022, our favorite family retreat." My face was not in a single frame. I called Dad. He didn't answer. So I texted, "I'm at the lake house. You've got 24 hours to explain everything. After that, I get a lawyer." 30 seconds later, my phone rang. His voice came through, nervous and fake calm. "Jake, listen." "No," I snapped. "You listen. You stole from me. Lied to me. Profited off of my inheritance. You think that's just going to go away? It was never meant to be permanent," he said quickly. "We were keeping it in the family. You weren't ready back then. You didn't have the time or money to manage it. I had the time to starve." I hissed. I had the time to skip doctor visits, to decline job offers I couldn't afford to relocate for, to nearly get evicted twice. While you were pulling in thousands a month renting my house. There was a long pause. "I'm sorry," he said, barely above a whisper. "We didn't think it would go this far." "Too late," I said. "This is theft. And I'm going to prove it." Then I hung up. Because the next person I was calling was Grandma's old lawyer. Grandma's lawyer, Mr. Bernstein, still practiced in the same brick building downtown with the creaky floors and the ivy-covered sign. He remembered me immediately. "Little Jakey Monroe," he said, shaking my hand with a sad smile. "Haven't seen you since you were a skinny high schooler stealing all the cookies at Ruth's while signing." "She left me the lake house," I said, getting straight to the point. He nodded solemnly. "She did. And she was very specific about it. No shared ownership. No conditions. No funny business." "Well," I said, placing the deed on his desk, "there's been a whole lot of funny business." I laid it all out. The silence after Grandma's death. The lie about her estate being simple. The rental scam. The fake welcome guide. My name being used on listings and tax forms I'd never seen. I even pulled up the online listings, complete with reviews raving about the Monroe family retreat. Bernstein's jaw clenched tighter with every detail. They committed fraud, he said. They concealed inheritance, falsified documents, and used your name without consent. And I want to go nuclear, I said. He gave me a long look over the rim of his glasses. Jake, I'll help you. But lawsuits take time. They'll get ugly. And they're not cheap. I nodded. Grandma left me a house. I think it's time it started paying for something I want. He smiled slightly. Attaboy. The first step was getting a full financial picture. Bernstein hired a forensic accountant, this tiny, terrifying woman named Patricia who could find fraud in a bowl of oatmeal. While she got to work, I went back to the lake house and did something that felt like both justice and pettiness. I canceled every single rental my parents had scheduled through the end of the year. 6 in total. One guest called me personally. We had our anniversary booked there. Sorry, I said. Turns out my parents were renting out property they didn't own. I'm the legal owner. You can thank the Monroe family for that. Word spread fast. I posted on the Lakeview rental page. Public notice: all bookings at 1478 Mirror Lake Road are fraudulent. I am the legal owner and was unaware of this listing. All further reservations are cancelled. Emma shared it. So did Nathan. So did some of the guests who felt duped. The comment section turned into a bonfire. Within hours, my parents called me again. This time, Mom was crying. You're humiliating us, she sobbed. People are calling, asking if we're scammers. You are scammers, I said coldly. Congratulations. The truth's finally catching up. You don't understand, she sniffled. We needed the money. Your dad's hours were cut and that gave you the right to steal from me? I snapped. I was drowning, Mom. Drowning. And you watched it happen from the porch of the house I was supposed to live in. She didn't answer. Just kept sniffling like she thought guilt would fix this. Here's how this works now, I said. I'm taking legal action. You will provide full financial records of every dollar earned from this house since 2017. Rental income, tax returns, maintenance costs, everything. You have 1 week. And if we don't? I let that hang in the air. Then I said, then you can explain your situation to a judge. And I hung up. I stood there, heart pounding, realizing that for the first time in my life, I held every card. By the end of the week, Patricia, the forensic accountant, had compiled a 28-page report that read like a heist novel. My parents hadn't just been casually renting out the lake house. They'd built an entire business around it. Bank transfers, LLCs, fake expenses. They'd created a shell company called Monroe Property Group and funneled every rental payment into it, keeping me legally responsible for the property while collecting 100% of the profits. Ballpark estimate? I asked, staring at the spreadsheet. Patricia adjusted her glasses like she was delivering a eulogy. They've earned $312,000 in net income from the property since 2017. I felt physically ill. $300,000. While I'd eaten ramen 5 nights a week. While I'd taken out payday loans just to afford a root canal. While I'd sold my bike to pay my electric bill. Do I have a case? I asked Bernstein. He didn't even hesitate. Jake, they're done. This is fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, tax evasion, civil theft. You could bury them. The only question is how deep you want to dig. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I had doubts, but because I couldn't stop seeing it. Every struggle. Every hard year. Every phone call home where I'd asked for help, and they'd said, sorry, times are tough. They were never tough. They were never tough for them. I called Emma the next day. You okay with testifying? Against our parents? She said. I'll bring popcorn. She'd started going through old emails, texts, even bank statements. Turns out, she'd spotted inconsistencies years ago, random deposits, sudden vacations, expensive upgrades to their home, but always assumed Dad had gotten bonuses or promotions. Not that they were making passive income on stolen property. I can't believe they did this to you, she said softly. And lied for years. I can't, I said. I just hate that I didn't see it. Meanwhile, my parents had gone from panic to denial. They sent me a letter, yes, an actual letter, pleading for understanding and forgiveness. They even suggested a Family mediation. Like this was a minor tiff over holiday plans, not an elaborate con job that lasted 6 years. I didn't respond. I sent the letter to Bernstein. 3 days later, they got the formal notice. Jake Monroe versus Robert and Karen Monroe, civil complaint for fraud, conversion, breach of fiduciary duty. Included. Demand for full financial restitution. Return of all income derived from the property. Punitive damages. Injunction barring them from representing or using my identity in any legal or financial manner. And just for good measure, Patricia sent a separate packet to the IRS. Game on. The next blow came from someone they never saw coming, Grandma's estate lawyer. Turns out, he had copies of the original will and a notarized letter from Grandma that said, quote, "This house is for Jake. No one else. I trust him to build a life here. Anyone who interferes should be ashamed of themselves." That letter was entered into evidence. My parents lawyered up immediately. But you can't unsteal something once the cameras are rolling. A week before the court date, my dad called me from an unknown number. I answered, curious. He sounded like someone who just lost everything in Vegas. "Jake, please. Let's just talk. This has gone too far." "You think I took it too far?" I asked, stunned. "We'll pay back some of it," he said. "We can work something out. But court it's ugly. It'll make your mother sick. It'll destroy our reputation." I let that hang. Then I said, "Good." And I hung up. Because some reputations deserve to burn. The day of the hearing, my parents walked into the courthouse looking like they were headed to a funeral, and in a way, they were. My mother wore a black blazer like she was mourning her dignity. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 2 weeks, which, to be fair, he probably had. I walked in with Bernstein, Patricia, and enough evidence to flatten them into the legal equivalent of powdered milk. Court was packed. Emma sat in the second row, arms crossed like she was watching a courtroom drama unfold. Nathan had come too, quietly nodding when I passed him. Turns out, our extended family had a lot of opinions once the news broke. Spoiler, none of them were on my parents' side. The judge was a no-nonsense woman who didn't seem interested in excuses or parental crocodile tears. "Mr. and Mrs. Monroe," she began after opening statements. "You stand accused of willfully concealing an inheritance, defrauding your son, and profiting from assets you had no legal right to use. Do you deny these claims?" Dad tried to speak. "Your Honor, this was a misunderstanding between family." Patricia stood. "If I may, Your Honor, I have documentation of $312,000 in rental income deposited into an LLC controlled solely by the defendants, using property registered under the plaintiff's name." The judge waved her hand. "Save it for the record. We'll be seeing it all." Then it began. For 6 hours, we walked the court through everything: dates, wire transfers, bank statements, Airbnb bookings, tax filings. Patricia laid it out like she was hosting a forensic cooking show, and the recipe was how to cook your parents' entire legal standing until it's burnt toast. At one point, the judge turned to my dad and said, "You used your son's legal identity to generate income for yourself, without his knowledge, and you want to call that a misunderstanding?" He didn't answer. He just stared at his hands. Then came the moment I'll never forget. My lawyer pulled out the letter from Grandma Ruth. The judge read it aloud, slowly. "This house is for Jake. No one else. I trust him to build a life here. Anyone who interferes should be ashamed of themselves." The courtroom went silent. And my mother started to cry. Not the performative, dab-a-napkin kind of crying she used to get out of speeding tickets. This was the full-on ugly, hiccuping sob of someone who just realized the game was over. They tried one last Hail Mary, offering a settlement. Half the money, no punitive damages, no court order. I didn't even look at Bernstein. I just said, "No." "I see," the judge said. "In that case," she ruled in my favor on every count. Full restitution, $312,000. Punitive damages, $50,000. Mandatory apology statement. Immediate transfer of all rental accounts and related assets. Legal injunction barring them from using my name in any financial or legal matter again. Emma squeezed my shoulder when it was over. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. About ramen noodles and broken heaters. About every job offer I couldn't take. About the time I pawned my guitar, my grandma's guitar, just to cover rent. Like justice, I said. But the best part? Catching my parents outside the courthouse, mid-interview with a local reporter who'd caught wind of the scandal. As I walked by, I heard the reporter ask, "Do you have anything to say to your son?" My mom looked at me, eyes red. "We thought we were helping him." I turned to the camera. "No," I said calmly. "They were helping themselves. At my expense." Then I walked off. And left them in the shadow of their own lies. 2 months after the court ruling, the checks cleared. Every penny, down to the last cent, hit my new bank account, a crisp, unapologetic $362,000. The money itself didn't fix everything, but God, it felt like oxygen after years of financial suffocation. I stared at my balance, remembering the time I'd cried over a declined debit card buying laundry detergent. Now, I had choices. The first thing I did? I took the lake house off every rental site permanently. No more strangers. No more fake welcome baskets labeled "From the Monroe family." I changed the locks, painted the front door my favorite shade of green, and tore down every trace of their fraud, starting with that ridiculous guest book filled with reviews praising my mom's homemade jam. I burned it. Literally. I kept the house. I couldn't walk away from it, not after what I went through to reclaim it. But I made it mine. Emma helped me paint the guest room. Nathan came over on weekends to sand down the old dock. I planted a lemon tree out front. Grandma always said, "You can't be mad under a lemon tree." I still tested that theory once a week. One afternoon, I got a letter from my mom. Handwritten. Full of apologies that felt like someone else's voice trying to sound like hers. She wrote things like, "We never meant to hurt you," and "We were just trying to do what was best for the family." She never once wrote, "I stole from you." Not once did she say, "I'm sorry." I didn't write back. Dad tried to. Sent a long, rambling email with the subject line, "Can't we just move forward?" I marked it as spam. Then came the real kicker, Tyler. Yeah. My cousin Tyler. The one in the dock photo, cheesing like he owned the world. He called me. I didn't answer, obviously, but he left a voicemail that started with, "Hey man, I know things are weird right now," and ended with, "Any chance I could still use the house for my bachelor weekend?" I laughed so hard I choked on my coffee. I sent him a 2-word text. "Not happening." 3 minutes later he replied, "You've changed." Damn right I had. But not in the way he meant. I'd stopped believing I owed everyone kindness just because we shared a bloodline. I'd stopped minimizing my pain to protect their image. I'd stopped sacrificing my peace to keep the Monroe family illusion intact. Let them stew. I had other plans. That month, I hired a contractor to build a back deck overlooking the lake. Installed a wood-burning stove. Bought a kayak. And for the first time since Grandma died, I opened the closet in the master bedroom and pulled out the old quilt she made for me when I was 10. Still smelled like cedar. Still felt like home. I sat on the porch that night, wrapped in that quilt, sipping whiskey Grandma would have called liquid sass, and watched the moon ripple across the lake's surface. And that's when I decided I wasn't done. If this happened to me, it's happened to others. And I was going to find them. I was going to help them. Just like Grandma helped me. A year later, the lake house had transformed, not just into a home, but into a sanctuary. I'd created something I never thought I'd have, peace. Quiet mornings with coffee on the dock. Summer nights around a fire pit with real friends who hadn't asked for favors, just showed up to be there. And then, I launched the Ruth Foundation. Named after the only family member who ever truly saw me. It started small, just me, a lawyer friend, and a website, but it took off faster than I expected. Within 6 months, we'd helped dozens of young adults recover assets stolen by manipulative family members. Inheritance theft, trust fund fraud, identity misuse. Turns out, there were a lot of people like me. People who'd been robbed not just of money, but of truth. Helping them helped me heal. Not forgive. Not forget. But heal. One day, as I was prepping a guest cabin for our first survivor retreat, a car pulled into the gravel drive. I stepped out, wiping sawdust off my hands, and froze. It was Emma. And behind her, my mom. I didn't speak. I just waited. I'm not here to fix things, Mom said, eyes tired, voice soft. I know I can't. That was new. Honest. I lost everything, she said. Friends. Reputation. Your father, he's not the same. I didn't flinch. I just listened. I just wanted you to know. I read about the foundation, she added. I'm proud of what you're doing. That hit harder than I expected. I don't need your pride, I said. But thank you. She nodded, then turned to leave. No begging. No excuses. Just a moment, quiet and human. After she drove away, Emma stayed behind. You okay? Yeah, I said, staring out at the lake. I think I actually am. Because sometimes, justice doesn't look like revenge. It looks like rebuilding. Like breaking a cycle so the next generation never has to. That night, I sat on the dock under Grandma's stars, holding the photo of her I keep in my wallet. Hey Ruth, I whispered. We're okay now. Thanks to you. And for the first time in years I believed it.